All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the stream. I am Jasmine, and I'm a practicing witch, and I talk about it here on the internet. Right? I have a lovely co host with me for this sort of trad witch stream. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Wait, let me unmute you first. There we go.
Hello, everybody. I'm Troll Huldren. I'm a practicing witch as well. I've been practicing traditional witchcraft for 30 years, and I've been an initiate of the fairy tradition for about 18 of those.
Love. I want to just give a real quick disclaimer that when I went to go take my daily vitamin today, I was bamboozled because it was not a daily vitamin. Okay. So just so you all know, if I seem to be a little bit slower than usual or struggling, it's because we're having a really good time. Amen.
We're going to have a really good time. Everything's going to be fine.
And today's topic is tools of the art. And we did have a document for this. However, we cannot find it.
And that's probably
on me. Yeah. But you know what? My co-star today said, you don't have to be in control. So we're going to not be in control. And we're just going to kind of go off the cuff, and we're going to talk about tools of the art from a trad witch perspective.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? What does tools of the art mean to you?
So, I really, we've talked about this before, where we're both very much into the craft as a craft. And in any craft, whether it's cooking or it's stonemasonry or carpentry or weaving or anything, you need tools. You need things that help you do your art. You help you do your craft, practical art. And so, there are some really classic witch tools like the knife, the wand, the cup, the stone. And they have different names and different traditions. They're sort of, coded to different traditions, sort of cosmology. But I think we get down with making tools that are for specific purposes too. Like, we've talked about like very specific things we made for like a particular spell before, or your regular things that you use in like how you interact with your spirits and your familiars. Like I have a pipe, for instance, that I use to smoke with particular dead people. Certain herbal substances, as it were. Yeah. The craft requires tools, even though the most essential tool, I think, is our body.
Right.
Tools.
Yeah.
But if you ask a farmer to go out and just use their body to do farming, they're going to look at you and be like, what the hell? Like, I need tools. And I think a witch is the same. I think we need tools to perform our magic effectively and efficiently.
And I relate to that. I think at the end of the day, of course, the most powerful tool is our physical bodies. Of course, I mean, of course, we can use like our flesh vessel as like a living stang. Of course, we can use our fingers as, scissors or athames or wands or whatever. And I believe in that and I support that. I really do. But like you said, you wouldn't tell a farmer to not use their tractor because like it's kind of like part of the trade.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true for witches. I know that for some of the witches in our school, in the Red Thread Academy, sometimes people get a little bit turned off because there's like a lot of regalia. There's like robes and hoods and veils. There's also a lot of tools. We have like 3 different athames. We have a cauldron, a chalice. We have a cake stone. We have like various different tools. And I think there's a lot of capitalistic pressure for people to like run out and buy something like specialty crafted on Etsy. And I think personally, that's kind of a misstep because I think part of being, a traditional folkloric witch is first of all, using what you have on hand.
Mm-hmm.
And also adapting to your surroundings and making do with what you got
Mm-hmm.
to a degree. So while yes, there are lots of like flashy tools, you can absolutely go to like a thrift store and purchase a knife and use that as a ceremonial blade.
Mm-hmm.
We use 3 different colored knives in our tradition. You can always paint them. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
get you some acrylic paint from the craft store. You know, I have seen people make beautiful stangs out of pitchforks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, right, right. I have beautiful black scrying mirrors out of a picture frame and some black paint. So, like, you don't really need to spend a ton of money because we are witches, we are
Mm-hmm.
not magicians.
Yep.
And there is a difference. And maybe in a stream in the future, we can cover like various labels and things like that.
Yeah.
See, I think there is a big difference between the magicians and the witches because it comes down to like class, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I forgot where we were at, but you can use whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there are a lot of like traditional tools.
Mm-hmm.
You can use your own body to make most magic,
Mm-hmm.
but I also kind of don't love the idea that tools are not important at all.
Mm-hmm.
You
Agree.
know?
Heavy agree. Although I was given ritual gestures. So like if you don't have a wand, for instance, um, we're told to make the Manofika sign and use that gesture as a wand. Or if you don't have a knife, we're told to make this gesture and use this as the knife. And it's likewise scissors and whatnot. But this would be your cup. But if you don't have those things, sure. But also if you have those things, then you don't need to do those things.
Well, let's talk about the stang because we
Yes.
already have a question about the stang. So, what is a stang to you?
To me, it is. It's a lot of things.
I know, I know. This one is like kind of like really like a loaded question.
Yeah, it's an altar. It is an icon of the witch's god in some sense. Our stang actually houses the spirit that is the magistellus of our coven. So it's the face of the master that we interact with directly. Um, it is a tree upon which kind of the compass hangs and is built around like scaffolding almost. It is a divining pole / mill pole / steering device for the compass that allows you to sort of aim where you're headed with it. That's kind of one way we use it. It's a lot of things. It's kind of a great big powerful wand in some ways.
Wouldn't you say that the stang is a kind of a moniker of traditional witchcraft?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would too.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely emblematic of lots of different traditions that have sort of built their practice around this symbolism. This sort of, it's two things that have kind of united into oneness, creating this third thing that sort of appears out of that unification. On ours we have a pitchfork, and we use a buck skull that we paint green, and we paint one eye dark and one eye light to sort of represent some symbolism there. And then we put a sort of a golden or beeswax colored candle in between the horns. That's how we dress it. And sometimes we'll wrap it with different things for the year. Like at Candlemas, we wrap snakeskin around the stang for a particular reason. At Hallows, we put a reaping knife at the bottom, like a curved sickle blade at the base of it. We also hang different kinds of wreaths on it during different times of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right now, he's dressed up in like a cloak because he's in our main temple, and he's kind of overseeing things here. That's kind of how we have him dressed for inside.
Yeah, I made like a whole video on the channel talking about like stangs because I feel like there's so much to like delve into the mysteries of that. So if you're interested in my thoughts, check out that video. But we do have this question from the Bone Whisperer Hex. Would you give any suggestions about what is appropriate to decorate or dress the stang? So you kind of talked a little bit about how you like decorate or dress yours. Care to elaborate?
Yeah, I think it should match the season or the particular ritual that you're doing. So, like, if you're doing a full moon ritual or a dark moon ritual, you might use things appropriate to the symbolisms that encode those things. So, like, for the dark moon, I might use, well, for us, the dark moon has a lot of sea symbolism, referring to the idea that the moon is like a boat that comes down to Earth during the dark of the moon, and the fairy queen is gathering souls to take somewhere. So we use a lot of sea imagery around that time. So like waters of different sorts. We might put like a vessel of water at the base of the cauldron, or at the cauldron at the base of the stang. At Hallows, I mentioned the reaping hook. We've done some like crossed wands during like midsummer that represent the red man and the green man, or the red serpent and the green serpent sort of coming together in sexual union. There's different things you can do. Sort of go with the vibes. That's what I say. Go with the vibes.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, it should be kind of like rooted in whatever season that you're in. I feel that a lot. When I think about our stangs decorations, we hang our witch cords on them in ceremony, and maybe we can talk about witch cords next as like the next tool. But when I think of like other ways that they are adorned or decorated, I think of the use of arrows. So having like a white and black arrow that represent the white and black goddess, and having the arrows point up with the white arrow on top for the light half of the year, or having them point downwards with the black arrow on top, but pointing down for the dark half of the year. And then, like you said, like seasonal garlands. That's gorgeous. That's beautiful. We love that. And a book that I can think of off the top of my head, if you're interested in learning more about stangs for anyone watching, Keldon's book, The Crooked Path, really great stang resources, talking about putting a nail in the bottom of the stang.
According to Shawnee Oates, who's the current matriarch of the clan of Tubal-Cain, that nail in the bottom is like one of the most essential parts of the stang, because in Robert Cochrane's conceptualization of that tool, the stang is a steed, it's a horse that we're riding to the Sabbath or the other world. And that nail is like the key that like unlocks its magic. It literally represents nailing the horseshoe to the horse so that it can travel. And she actually refers to it like as the royal key or the key of kings. That's one way of talking about the stang, as how it operates within the compass, particularly, I think.
Abby the Witch says, Jim McGarry mentions the nail too, and the stang is a horse. Also, hi.
Hi.
How about witch cords?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So,
because I feel like if we're talking about traditional witchcraft, be it American tradcraft or not, I feel like witch cords is something to talk about. So how would you define witch cords? What are they? How do you use them?
For me, they're often used in my tradition, the fairy tradition, like almost like a bridge between worlds in some ways. They're also, we get a red cord at initiation. In some traditional witchcraft, they give you a white cord at your initiation, and over a year you redden it by dyeing it successively. That's how they do it in A Fourth Wen, which is Peter Padden's tradition. And they also wear them. So like we wear our cords typically around our waist in fairy. We have black robes and we have red cords. But in Peter, like I was taught by Peter Padden for a while, and they have an interesting practice where they wear their cord either around their neck, around their waist, or around their left wrist, and that
Interesting.
represents different. Like if you're working for yourself, I believe you wrap it around your left wrist. If you're working for your community, I believe you wear that around your neck. I might be getting these wrong, so let me put that out there as well. And then if you do it around your waist, you might be working for your coven. But they're sort of placed differently depending on like where you're dedicating your work for that rite to go to. I think that was a cool way of interacting. My cord also has 9 knots, which is also a really common thing in traditional witchcraft, a 9-knotted cord. Yeah. How about you? How do you guys work the cord?
So we have a couple of different cords in our tradition. We have the first cord would be like the gray or the green cord. Gray or green kind of like interchangeably, you know. The idea of the green cord is this is someone who is dedicating to the craft. They're not really like an initiate. And the idea of the cord being green is that they're like a budding witch in the tradition, because very horticultural influence, if you will. The gray cord is basically the same thing, but it's more about like the liminal space between initiate and non-initiate. Okay. Both the gray and the green is someone who's like a dedicant, but they're not an initiate. So they've, you know, done the ways of dedicating, and they've been recognized by 2 or more other initiates. And I actually do have a whole document for that I don't have pulled up, but there's a whole way of doing that. And then after that, we have our red cord, which is our kind of like adoption cord. So this can kind of vary based off of how a witch acquires it. The red cord is basically like you're taking first degree. Okay. So our tradition has like an online academy. So most of those witches that are pursuing online training in that way have already kind of passed the green and gray because they're already dedicated by purchasing the book. And so they dedicate their red cord at their year 1 dedication. In our coven, so kind of like separate from the tradition, we have our red cords at the 3rd harvest because we initiate first degrees at the 1st harvest. So it's basically like giving them an official cord after their 90-day trial. Okay. We also have triple cords, which is like woven by red, white, and black cords that represent our triune sort of God. And then we also have specialty cords. So like in our tradition, 2nd degrees and higher take on a specialty of like votary, bard, warden, conjurer, etc. There's like 7 different specialties, and there's a special cord for each of those that they can opt to like take on. So, and then aside from that cord, we also have what we just refer to as like a witch cord, which in our coven specifically, so not necessarily in like, I would say like the wider tradition or clanad or even like ATW, we have a witch cord in our coven, which is like a personal cord that is decorated with charms based off of like acts of good deeds and accomplishments within the work. These cords are made out of like nautical rope that you would use to like tie boats down or cattle. It's the same type of rope actually.
Yeah.
And so you might braid different colored ribbon into those cords based off of like your crowning or various other things that I maybe shouldn't talk about on a live stream. You braid that in, you know, and then you add charms to it. So we have like 3 different main cords that make up like one cord. But how we use these cords, you know, the mileage can vary. When I'm not using them, they kind of like hang like a garland over my working altar.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the work that I do at my altar sort of feeds into my cord,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore also pours into my other initiates that I'm connected to through our red soul. But in ritual, we wear the cords to signify our rank, our degree, and our place within the tradition and the coven. And we take them off and adorn our stang with them when we feed our stang in ritual.
Okay.
Because that's a big part of like what we do in our coven. Every time the wheel turns, we feed our stang with our scarlet sacrament, and we hang our cords upon it. But there's also kind of like the notion, kind of like very Dianic or like superwoman, of like using the cords as like a magical lasso. So tying up the magic and ritual, like tying a knot in your cords and bringing that magic home, and then untying your cord and hanging it around your altar to like bring the magic from ritual home. That's also a big thing. Also, like tying up the winds.
Yes.
That's a thing. Also, the cords are used in like initiation for like binding. Yeah. I feel like I've been rambling.
No, I want to pick up on what you said about the binding. So the binding of the winds is really important to my tradition as well.
Yes.
And the winds relate to the wheel of the year for us. If you want a really cool explanation of that, there is a book called The Witch Compass by my friend
Ian Chambers.
Love. And he goes into that in that book, like a practice, and I can kind of speak to that from that public book, where the knots are representing, you know, the 8 different festivals on the wheel of the year, and you can catch the magic of those times, the virtue of those times, and bring them into other times of the year. Say, if you're having a really bad winter, you can go to your midsummer or your Rudmas or Beltane knot, and undo that knot and bring that magic into your winter lives to give you the heat and the potency from that time of year. You know, and you can just sort of do it the opposite way, or you can focus on, let's say you want to do a romance or love charm of some sort. You're going to take that Beltane knot and you're going to use the potencies of that time of year to sort of help you build your magic upon that foundation.
We really need to like both make like a full video about like witch cords, I think. Because there's a lot that we could say. I was thinking while you were talking also about like how we use them as almost a sort of veil for like necromancy or working in like a cemetery. So I think that we should make that a goal, that we like make like a witch cord video on both of our channels.
Let's do that.
Nanette wants to know, where can I find out more about cords? Which I think we've kind of mentioned. We mentioned Ian Chambers' work, The Witch Compass, which I'm currently rereading. Okay. And I plan to do like a full review of that book on my channel soon. Gemma Gary's work as well mentions the cords.
You know, I come from an oral tradition, so like a lot of my lore base is just my teachers and other initiates telling me things.
You're going to have to make some YouTube videos then.
That's right. Yeah, let's do it. Let's each make a video on witch cords. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that sounds fun. What about like the next tool? Should we talk about like ritual blades?
Yes, I was just pulling out my knife. Hold on, I gotta hide. So a lot of us do adorn some of our tools with like specific kinds of writing. You'll see like in a lot of the grimoires, you'll see like instructions for writing certain symbols on certain tools. And in the fairy tradition, some of those,
for the sake of YouTube advertisement, these are fake knives.
Yes, fake.
Totally
Uh,
fake. These are toy knives,
so
guys.
like I do have a black handled knife, and it has an oak theme because my legal initials spell OAK. But this is my ritual blade. It's like a Chris knife from
Oh,
Linden
she's
Knives.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of her. So she's from Linder Knives, which is like a German knife company. I don't know if they exist anymore, but I bought my knife years and years ago now.
In your tradition, do you just use one blade?
Yeah, and we're very loosey goosey about a lot of the sort of standardized, like it needs to be black handled, it needs to be double edged. We don't necessarily follow that. We're much more anarchic about it. So, like, Cora Anderson's ritual blade was her kitchen paring knife that she
Right,
used. And she
right.
also used that like at her job working at a hospital cutting food for sick people. So uh, she was able to like take healing magic from her rituals and like give them to the ill and the dying. um, but you know, so I'm much more of a gearhead, so I went out and got like a fancy blade and whatnot years ago.
And we love a fancy blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you what?
We use three different blades
Okay.
in our tradition. We refer to them as like the white blade, the black blade, and the red blade. One of the blades are used in like ceremonial bloodletting.
Okay.
So, like, it's a blade that's specifically used to draw blood or more commonly to like bless blood. So, if you prick your finger with like a diabetic needle, you would pass the red blade over it to kind of like consecrate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have like, I think what most people would be familiar with, like an athame and then a bowline. So,
Okay.
like, basically one blade to kind of carve out space
Mm-hmm.
energetically and ritualistically to like cut etheric ties, or to cut like a door in the circle to go use the bathroom if you're a little wine drunk mid-Sabbath, babe. We've all been there. Or another blade, like I said, the blade to cut herbs or carve candles. But we use like two different blades for the etheric realm and the physical realm, and then like blood. And it's kind of taboo for us, and this is not at all saying that there's like a right or a wrong way, but this is a difference in tradition. It would be kind of taboo to use the same blade across all three
Mm-hmm.
sort of like realms for
Yeah.
us. Oh no, my ring light died.
Uh-oh.
Well, we're not going to worry about it. But yeah, that's kind of like, also, we don't have wands in like the wider American traditional sort of like clanad that like Spiral Castle is a part of,
Mm-hmm.
which would be like my initiating sort of coven. There's not wands.
Okay.
I use wands in our specific coven, SCC, but we use one of the ritual blades, like how some people might use a wand.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's cool. That's really cool. We definitely use our, you know, some people might have their own personal preference for like multiple knives and a knife does this or a knife does that, but like there really is no traditional mandate in the fairy tradition for any particular way of those things necessarily. We assign the knife to fire in the fairy tradition. I think that's somewhat common in a lot of traditional witchcrafts, that knives are fire and wands tend to be air. It's kind of like backwards to a lot of ceremonial associations.
yeah, to like ceremonial magic and rider weight and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also why, like, in our coven, we still use wands because they kind of like fulfill that ceremonial magic sort of role. But in our like wider clanad, there are no wands.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
In the fairy tradition, wands are really big, actually. we actually have a lore about 3 kinds of wands. Like when you're initiated, you're a white wand. When you start a coven, you're a green wand, and when you have multiple covens under you, you're a black wand.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it kind of, the idea is like you have like a new stick that when you're first initiated, like that's the new initiate and the new stick that's been stripped of bark, and then as you practice, it kind of gets blood and dirt and grime on it, and it darkens and becomes glassy and sort of green. And then if you practice for a really long time, then it's really dark with use and age and wear. Like that's the sort of development around that particular set of symbolism in that order.
I really like this comment from Nanette. I found a really cool knife that looks like a ritual knife, but I found it at a gas station. I love that because you can make a ritual tool out of just about anything.
Yeah.
Again, you don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of money on Etsy on ritual tools.
I made my own wand from, well, the branch was a gift from a friend from Germany. So this comes from the Black Forest. It's an oak tree branch. And then I wrapped it with my own set of bells. And there is a bloodstone here and a little silver ring up here. But like, this is my wand. I put it, right now I'm working with a particular feather, but that's not always there.
So you can do a video on that too.
Yeah.
That would be a really good video.
Yeah. But yeah, we think of wands as like miniature stangs almost. And in fact, my wand is a miniature stang. So, yeah.
How about bells?
Oh, yeah. So I use a bell. I don't know if you can see it over there on the altar. It's on that side. I use it to like call spirits, like I'm ringing a bell to like get their attention. But I also use it to clear space. Sometimes if the energy feels stagnant, I might ring the bell to like set a different intention. While I'm ringing the bell, I'll probably hum or sing or speak aloud something to get that attention moving and going. Do you guys use bells a lot?
Yeah. So Angel, we did talk about this earlier. If you go back, like once the stream is over, if you go back, we like hashed this out for like a solid 8 minutes or so. So check that out. Yes, we do use bells. We use bells similar to how you mentioned, where they're used for calling spirits. They're used for cleansing space, like a sound sort of cleansing. I have a bell that's also what we call like a Cthulhu, which is like a relic that connects us to an essence of a spirit. So when I ring that particular bell, it's connected to a particular spirit that lends its aid to our work. But yeah, bells would definitely be a big thing. Now, let me ask this. Do y'all use a anvil or oath stone in any capacity?
We have a stone, but it's not an anvil. We use like a flat stone that is usually you're told to go find it out in nature, so you go digging through the earth to find your flat stone. And we write signs on it. We give oaths to the stone. We call it the hearth stone. But yeah, we also use a stone, but not an anvil. The anvil sounds really cool.
Yeah, the anvil. So it's interesting. So prior to my initiation in the Spiral Castle and American traditional witchcraft through the Red Thread Academy, I had never used an anvil before. But I did also have a stone that I found out in nature. I painted it with hot pink nail polish. Love that.
Nice.
It was from a park in the neighborhood that I grew up in as a child. And as a child, I collected this stone because like I felt like I should, The top half of the stone is like really smooth and the bottom half is like really bumpy and textured. So we would like incorporate using this stone as like a divination tool. At like summer solstice, we would throw this stone, and if it came up bumpy side up, the rest of the wheel would be a bumpy ride. And if it came up smooth side up, then it would be a smooth ride for like the rest of the wheel. In our tradition, the anvil is what we call the oath stone, and it's literally an anvil. More common that people use like a jeweler's anvil, like a small one with like a little hammer for their altar. But some people have an anvil because forging along with weaving are like two really popular arts of our tradition. So you're like a forger or a weaver, you know. And the oath stone is used to seal deals, seal pacts. You prick your finger, you drop your blood over it, you hammer it on the anvil, you know.
Nice.
And you sign the deal with blood to the devil and the red god. Promises, oaths, degrees. Yeah, witches are formed over that.
I'm really, so we also use a forging sort of blacksmith imagery in the way we make a compass. So we have one of the tools I was going to talk about are these. This is called a dod. It's a wooden stake. Some people use different woods for each direction, but we have all oak dods, and these actually come from a circus that was around in the 40s. So it's got a lot of juice in it, and we carve particular symbols at one end of it, and then these are used to nail the stars to the land. So the imagery is about like the guardian spirits of our compass, the spirits of the winds of the quarters, and we nail them to the land when we're invoking them. And we have a special hammer we call the mel, which is a hammer that derives its sorcerer's virtue from having beaten hot metal. So it's an old like blacksmith's hammer that I've taken and sort of enchanted and consecrated. And we use that to drive these wooden stakes into the ground when we make our compass round. So that's one way we use that imagery and sort of call upon like the powers of Tubal Cain, for instance, when we're doing our work.
How about like a keek stone or a black mirror?
Oh, yeah, I definitely use black mirrors. There's one behind the skull that's on my altar that represents God herself back there. Sometimes people will put images of the star goddess or old fate at the back of their altar, or sometimes they'll just have a round, curved black mirror for her instead, because there's fairy stuff around the curved black mirror. But we use it for scrying. We use it to conjure spirits into, instead of necessarily doing possession in our flesh bodies. We'll do sort of a possession by speaking with the deity in a black mirror.
Yeah, we do that too.
Yeah, that's neat. That's really neat.
Yeah. We do like mirror jumping, where we will use like the black mirror for trance work to like jump from other world, you know, and like different realms. Yeah.
I do a ritual that was taught to me by Lee Morgan and the maiden of his coven, Bex. And it is a ritual where you trade perspectives with your fetch mate to see what they see in you. It's a really powerful ritual.
And like you look into the black mirror and your reflection sort of like will shift in your mind's eye to, yeah, we do that too.
Yeah, neat. Yeah. I think that's a really powerful way to help you with your own self-esteem as a witch. You know, our lore holds it that these spirits are attracted to us for a reason. They, you know, this marriage with this spirit that lasts lifetimes, they see something in you that they find precious and profound, and they love you. And to be able to see that point of view from their perspective allows you to sort of bolster your own self-esteem, I think, in a really powerful way.
Are there any other tools that you can think of that we should?
Yeah,
since we're going off here.
I love it. A lot of people
use good document.
A lot of people use horns or trumpets. I have a conch shell that I use to call spirits, particularly spirits of the West. I'm going to blow it for everybody so they can hear the beautiful sound that it makes.
Ooh, let me put you on. Hold on. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, love that.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Also whistles. So I have a whistle that I use to call my fetch mate, and it's this little thing right here, and it's carved with a face, and
Is
it's
that
made of
antler?
it's a deer antler tip, and you blow in here. So it's a way
Is
of
that a
conjuring.
whitetail? Is that a whitetail deer?
I believe it is, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I have a really close thing with bucks and deers because of this guy here. So, yeah.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah.
Rattles, other noisemakers, like I use this rattle. This was my magister, my fairy teacher's rattle, and we use this to draw the gate of the west at certain times of the year or at certain rituals when we want to conjure the actual dead into our rites, not just the mighty dead, but like the actual deceased people. And we do an interesting. There's some lore around how there's a difference between them. Yeah, we use a lot of noisemakers because in fairy we sing a lot. Like a lot of our liturgy is sung aloud, and we like song and music. Do you guys use music?
So Frater, yes, we do have a hammer and an anvil. The anvil would be our oath stone that we use. The hammer is a tool as well. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. So if you kind of like scroll back in the stream, you'll find it. But yeah, we use music as well. Our music is more so from like a trance sort of perspective of using music. I love an instrument though. Like I'm so here for a ritual instrument. Yeah.
We drum a lot for trancey stuff.
We like drumming. We like flutes. We do a lot of fluting. Guitars, acoustically, specifically acoustic guitars. And then like music, like in general, over like a Bluetooth speaker or something.
Yeah, I know some witches. I encountered this when I was studying with Peter Patton. There's some witches who are very against using like phones or Bluetooth speakers or whatnot in ritual. I totally use all that stuff. I'm
honey, I am leading our ritual with my phone in hand.
Yeah.
Controlling the music for ritual on the Bluetooth speaker. Basically working like if this was a church, I would be like the organist, but like just from my phone, playing the music that plays on the Bluetooth speaker. And then also we have a Google document. Yes, we do. I do. We have a Google document for the inner court to like lead the wheel turn, sort of like, right? And everyone has a place and everyone has a role and everyone has a part and it's all listed right there and we can read it right there because I feel like an iPhone or an Android is basically like a digital grimoire.
Yes.
I think it's really foolish and silly to think that we need to memorize everything by heart. Honey, if that's what works for you, then do that.
Yeah, no, I'm very blessed with a powerful memory to remember quotations and song lyrics and spells and liturgy, but I know that is definitely not everyone's cup of tea. And
I feel like there's some rites that calling from memory is wise.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessary.
No, I think you need to use whatever tools actually work. It's about the results in the end, right? Like when you call, the spirits come. When you do the magic, it happens. That's what's important.
Well, I'm going to put you on solo mode. I'm going to be right back. Okay. So like entertain the kids.
Let me show you all another tool. Oh, yeah. Let me show you. This was an initiation gift of mine. We use Scourges in the fairy tradition sometimes for certain things. This was an initiation gift for me. This handle was made by a craftsman. It's made out of beech wood. And then there are these gray, purplish 13 strands that were beautifully knotted of really beautiful leather. It's goat leather, I think. And yeah, this is one of my favorite little initiation tools. Sometimes people talk about the scourge as kind of being like the tail of Pan, like as in the god, the satyr, like god. But it's also associated with Hecate in a way. It kind of looks almost like a little bit of a torch. But it's about sort of dominion and purification. That's sort of the themes of the scourge and the fairy tradition. Yeah, and I also, another tool that we haven't talked about when we were talking about knives is I also use shears or scissors to do things. I have a pair of iron shears that I got from a craftsman, a blacksmith. I think it's really important to use your tools and not just collect them. So over the years, I've had lots of different knives, different wands, but if I find that I don't use something for a whole year and a day, I end up turning it into a gift and giving it away. Another tool that I was thinking about when we were talking about stangs was the besom or the broom, which we haven't talked about yet. And this tool is like a union of two natures. You know, you have this phallic stick and this sort of almost yonic brush and bristle, and they're sort of meeting and mingling. In fact, in some traditions, they carve a phallus shape here that's hidden inside of the bristles as they enter in, and we primarily use the besom as like a magical bridge in and out of the compass. It's almost like the little plank that you have to walk to get on a ship from the key. So when we make a compass, there's usually someone making it on the inside, and then they invite the coven into it after it's sort of been made. And they lay the compass across it at the like northeast portion, and everyone approaches it by tapping their left foot onto the besom and then turning widdershins into the compass round, as if you're climbing a stile to get over a hedge. So that's like one ritual practice that we do, sort of coming into the magical space. You're sort of turning yourself around and about. Yeah.
Loving around and about. I heard you talking about scourges before
Yes.
I left.
Yes.
This is one of ours.
Ooh, that's pretty.
So you take a scourge like so, like that. You know, you have like a little handle, and then you have like, you know,
lamp. Yeah.
We use our scourge predominantly when we are having like trans prophecy, to like beat the gods into us, or when we are doing other aesthetic rites, you know.
That I have actually used that technique early on. We were doing a ritual with, we call her Lilith the Alluring, and there's this invocation that one of my elders had written, and the last lines are like, never let my fingers fall from reaching for your hand. And so we went through the main part of the invocation at the end, and the last several lines we repeated over and over again, along with the person who was horsing the Lilith spirit, and we were scourging them as we were like in rhythm saying this chant, and it like definitely brought her on very intensely. She was so palpable in that space.
Well, and I feel like for us, like scourging is a part of our first degree initiation. So getting scourged as a first degree is kind of like an act of trust to a degree, no pun intended. But as a first degree, you will also scourge other members performing as an oracle, because that's part of our trans prophecy. So you have to kind of like be scourged to scourge.
Yeah.
You know, we also have these cords. So this is an example. It's a big wounding cord. So we have cords that we make for individual seasons for our stang. So like this is one season. This is another season. This is another season. This is another season. This is another season. This is 10 years worth of spring, summer, fall, winter chords. So every time we have like a cardinal point on the wheel, we make a particular charm that's like a protective charm for the witches that are initiates of our coven here locally. And then we make a seasonal cord that matches with the same fiber that we're wearing, like, you know,
nice.
to our stang.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really smart. That's
Can't
great
really go
technology.
much more in detail, but right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great technology. I love that, actually. That's really cool. Yeah.
So yeah, and then we take, so like this whole thing here, I think this equals out to about like 16 feet now. So if we unwind all of this, we can literally lay a circle with all of our previous year's magic.
That's really cool.
So even if we don't necessarily do an LBRP or a 3-soul alignment, we have this to like basically lay our compass or cast our circle, because this is already woven.
Yeah.
And it's also like kind of like a joke amongst us, because like we have to like figure out like how to like untangle this every single time. But that goes back to like how weaving and forging are both like sacred arts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that we should get as, hands-on with our craft as possible. I know that this is something I talk about with my apprentice a lot. When I was an apprentice, capitalism wasn't as in a late stage as it is now, and I had more time to study and be an apprentice and not focus on work and school and all that stuff. I feel like now, you have to work so much harder just to get by, just to survive. And people are crunched for time. And so the impulse is to like, I'm going to go out and buy all my tools by a person who specializes in making these things. But I think there is something really powerful to like making your own wand or stang, or finding your own stones out in nature.
And I think that's also more in line with the essence of being a traditional folkloric witch. Regardless of, if you're in America and what tradition you're a part of in America, or if you're in Europe or wherever, like traditional folkloric witchcraft is like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And
you
like,
get dirt under your nails, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, you get your hands dirty.
And like students that we have in our tradition, I'm like, I challenge you to do this as low cost as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know there's lots of like flashy, like ritual clothing and tools and pretty daggers and anvils and robes and, all the things I've mentioned earlier. But like, I challenge you to like find like a nightgown or a maxi dress in your own closet or from a thrift store to use as your robe. I challenge you to like go into your kitchen and find 3 blades that you already have and just paint them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I challenge you to make tools out of things that you already have instead of buying them. Just like repurpose household things. Cause I think that's really kind of the essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you bring up that piece of art that I shared with you a couple days ago?
God, let me find it. Okay, I'm gonna put you on solo. Give me a minute.
Because this will dovetail into how you don't necessarily even need to buy something. So in Fairy, we have a couple of tools that are not. They're made of a more subtle material. They're not hard carnal stuff. So I think of them as like etheric talismans or energy objects or spirit objects that were given to us or we go into the other world to find. And there are 2 very particular ones, the iron and the pearl pentacles. And in many respects, they're the same thing, but they're sort of Fairy's weird way of referencing the powers of the red court and the powers of the white court in specificity. They're really delicious. But the points of, Jasmine will put up here in a minute, the points of the Iron Pentacle are sex, pride, self, power, passion, and then the points of the Pearl Pentacle are love, law, knowledge, power, wisdom, and they're sort of laying over top of each other. They sort of unfold. They share the same power point, and they unfold what we call the black heart of innocence, which is the state of ecstatic purity. It's sort of the state of nature that we're sort of seeking. This, it's kind of like our little holy grail in a way. It is innocent like a child, but also sexual like a wild animal. Like there's no shame or social guilt laid upon our natural desires and feelings. So yeah, that's one of the most important tools of our tradition. Our entire tradition actually is built thinking of this as like a foundation stone of the tradition. This is one of the main symbols that's on our hearthstone, actually, is the iron and pearl pentacles. The whole
Can you see this art that I've laid over?
I cannot see. You can take the pentacles down if you want to show me the other thing.
Oh, I was just like showing like I found it.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So this is something you go and find as a beginning fairy apprentice. You go into the other world and you find this and you map this symbol to your body, like the sex points at our head, the pride points at our right foot, left hand, right hand, left foot, and you weave this power, these serpents through your body to sort of reclaim these virtues. But also, the Iron Pentacle creates affinity and connection and charisma between individuals. And then the Pearl Pentacle is more like binding communities together through the power of all being sort of on the same team, as it were. Sort of you all have communal interests with one another, so you can build coalitions of power between entities. So it's like a map for traversing the cosmos in a sense. Yeah.
And also beautiful art.
Thank you. And then another tool I wanted to talk about that kind of relates to that a little bit, that's very fairy specific. This is a particular cup that I have. I call it my Clonus cup. And that's CLANNES. And that is a Middle English word that means cleanness or brightness. And this is a tool that I use specifically for a ritual water cleansing thing that I do every day as part of my daily practice. And the whole idea of Clonus is to sort of get right with yourself, but it's also another way of doing in drinking with the ancestors, or what they call drenching the ghosts, sort of imagining that the ancestors are sitting in your guts down in the bottom of your belly. And as you take that sip of water, this is just one tiny little sip, you're drenching the entire underworld that you're connected to personally and wetting the mouths and the voices of the ancestors in that practice. And that is a way of grounding and cleansing you. So yeah, tools abound, man. Witches are all about things and tools. We're, in some ways, it feels like ceremonial magic is very like mind, and that like the prime material you're dealing with is like mental stuff, and in witchcraft, like the prime material stuff is like different kinds of bodies, whether it's like animal, vegetable, mineral, our own bodies, our own blood. Like we're dealing with stuff. We're playing with stuff.
Nanette says, my bowls for rituals are, wait, hold on, this one. I already do what you're talking about, Jasmine. I don't get very much money, and I take and get stuff from Goodwill and the dollar store. Hey, and that's fine, babe.
Yeah.
Fine. Most of my ritual stuff I either made or it's just around the household. I mean, my books for rituals are bowls that were in my cabinet in my kitchen, and I went out into the woods and got a piece of wood and made my own wand. And so blessed be.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. That's exactly what we're talking about, babes.
This is the way, as they say.
Do you have any closing thoughts on this topic of tools of the art?
Just that I think that, there's a lot of stigma these days about like overemphasis on tools, but I think that is itself a kind of stigma. Like, again, we were saying, like, some people think that the only tool that you really need is yourself. But like, if I want to dig a hole, just using my hands doesn't sound very great.
Yeah, I'm not doing that with these nails.
Right?
I'm not. You know what? And do I have a shovel? If so, I'm going to use a shovel. If I don't have a shovel, do I have a spoon? Right? If I don't have a spoon, do I have a cup?
Yeah.
If I don't have a cup, do I have a pot? Like, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen. And to speak a little bit more to that piece of like not having to spend a lot of money, one thing that came to my mind was that I find a lot of utility in wearing the clothes of dead people when I do ritual. It's like someone who has died. I have some clothes from my magister who passed away in 2007. And when I wear his clothes, I'm dressing in the clothes of someone who's already crossed over. So I have a little bit more access to the other world because of that. There's, I've definitely read suggestions that, one sorceress method to obtain ritual clothing is to do some grave robbing. I don't recommend that at all, but I've read that. That is something that definitely happened in the past. So going to Goodwill and getting clothes, that's a great idea. You might, bring your little pendulum along and be like, where's the dead people's clothes? And then you have some magical power added to that. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you all for watching. And thank you all for watching this if you're watching it as a replay. And thank you, Troll, for joining me again in this endeavor of talking about all things traditional witchcraft. We don't, as of now, have like the next one planned, but we will. So like be on the lookout for that. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for this video, this live stream. So until next time, blessed be, and we will see you in hell. Bye.